The Aruch Hashulchan, we're going to begin with, taking it up from where we left off yesterday, discusses what the idea is with women over here, and Megillah. And he says that in Osei over here, Otam echad yesh bezeh, dihine rabbeinu rama kosa b'siv beis yesh ermin din isha kard la'atzma berachos l'shmo mekir Megillah she'inech yavis b'kriyasa. The second opinion in the Shulchan Aruch says that if a woman will read the Megillah, so she would recite the bracha l'shemoya Megillah, or l'shemo mikra Megillah. We're going to learn about that more. To listen to the Megillah, because she's not obligated to read the Megillah, only to listen to the Megillah. Ubiyar dvarim da Mordechai reish Megillah, Hevi, the Bahag Gardis Nashim Chayavos. So as we learned yesterday, the Mordechai, one of the great Rishonim, in the beginning of Masechtas Megillah, quotes the Bahag, who says that women are obligated b'mishma Megillah, V'loi b'kriyasa, which it seems like is the listening of the Megillah, not the reading of it. Lefiza ati shapir hatoisefta shehivana b'sif aleph denashim paturus mimikra Megillah. So according to that, it makes sense what the Tosefta says, that the Tosefta says that women are exempt from Megillah. Why? Because their obligation, mishum dechayuva havirak b'shmiya, their obligation is just with listening. So it makes sense now that a woman cannot read the Megillah and fulfill the obligation of a man or men. Because they are not obligated. They're not obligated in the reading of the Megillah, only the listening. But the main matter is not so clear over here. This is all a setup to get to this question of the Aruch Hashulchan. Why is it that the obligation of women is only to listen to the Megillah, but not to read the Megillah? Why is that? Asked the Aruch Hashulchan. Asked Rabbi Yechiel Michal Epstein. So he answers veneerly, the Bahag Svirle, the Ev Shar Loimar, the Mitam Shafein Ayubo So Anes, Yechi of Gomer. It's impossible to say that because of the reason that they were also in the miracle, would there be a full-fledged obligation for them to read the Megillah? Ki'ish, like a male. It can't be. Number one, Av sounds secondary, not as the main importance. But number two, Dim Kain Lama Lama Al Chiyav Matzah L'Noshim Hekishet About Tochel Chametz B'Psachim. The Gemara Mesechus B'Psachim Amdav Mem Gimel over there teaches us that women are obligated in matzah. How do you know? How do we know that? We have a connection. What the Gemara basically over there says in English is that anyone who is not allowed to eat chametz is obligated to eat matzah. Right? Kol sheyishnu bebal tochel chametz yishnu bekum achilas matzah v'aninosh yehov yishnu bebal tochel chametz yishnu bekum achilas matzah. Something like that. The Gemara says. So why do you need to come on to that? Granted, it's a time-bound mitzvah, and therefore they would be exempt from it. But why don't we just say sha'afein hayaboso anes? They were included in the miracle. Answers the Aruch Hashulchan. According to the reasoning of that they were in the miracle, it's not a full-fledged obligation. Ki'ish, like a male. L'kriya, for reading of the Megillah. Aladai b'shmiya, it would be sufficient to listen to the Megillah. So this is how the Aruch Hashulchan answers the Gemara and answers how we know this idea that women will only be obligated to hear the Megillah, not to read it. Even on Chanukah, I could say that no, they're technically not obligated to light the Ner Chanukah, just to see it. Elim kin yesh labal de malekas b'shvil habal v'lachin in mutzios b'kriyos nes anashim miyonoshim mutzios kevan dechiyuv shava. So that's why a woman cannot read the Megillah for a man, because their obligation isn't as equal. We're going to be learning about this more today. The obligation of a man is to read the Megillah, as opposed to a woman only to listen. However, a woman could fulfill the obligation of another woman, technically speaking. We're going to go into that more, because, but technically speaking, it would work because they have an equal obligation. Start with the Mishna Berura today. We're going to get a tremendous amount done today. That's why I wanted to start exactly on time. The Shulchan Aruch in Siv Beis says whether someone who is reading or whether someone who's listening from the Megillah being read, he will fulfill his obligation. As long as it's under the assumption, echad hakari ve'echad hashemei min hakari yotzi yidei chavasa v'hu sheyishma mipi mishu chai b'kriyasa. That's assuming that if you listen to the Megillah from someone who is obligated to read the Megillah. Os v'hadar Mishna Berura specifies it's Shomei Kahuna over here. Listening is like answering. We're in Sukkah Lamed Ches. Says the Mishna Berura, V'sarach she'echavin in Daled, Hakari lohoitzi v'shemei alotzis kedin, shari mitzvah shechad moitzi chavera. The person who's reading the Megillah has to have the intention that he's going to fulfill the obligation of those who are listening to him, and those who are listening to the Megillah have to have the intention that they are fulfilling the obligation from the person who is reading the Megillah. Just like the halacha of other mitzvahs that one person could fulfill the obligation of other people, as it says in the next simon. Even b'di'evid, says those v'had Mishna Berura, if they did not have these intentions that the person reading the Megillah is gonna have the intention to fulfill the obligation of others, and the people who are listening are gonna have the intention to fulfill their obligation, if those intentions didn't happen, you wouldn't fulfill your obligation even post facto of the reading of the Megillah. Kavana, and what's the intention over here? Shalafnei shemaschil likrois yechavin al kol hakriya zeh lotzeis v'zeh lahoitzi. Before you begin reading the Megillah, you should have the intention on the entire reading to fulfill your obligation, or to get your obligation fulfilled, or to fulfill other people's obligations. You don't need to have that intention the entire laning, but at least in the beginning of the reading, that intention is in fact required. We should really skip Osei because we're going to come back to it more in the next session, because we're going to go into something much deeper that we're not going to go into now, about could you fulfill your obligation of Megillah through a telephone, a microphone, a megaphone, all of those things. It comes from this. In Osei, the Shulchan Aruch says, therefore, if you heard the Megillah reading from someone who is deaf, a minor, or someone who is mentally challenged. So the Shulchan Aruch then said, which we also learned yesterday, that you would not fulfill your obligation. Lo yatsa. Wouldn't be good. Okay? So the Mishna Berura over here says in Hey, Cherish, Hainu Medaber Ve'ina Shamea Klal. This is talking about someone who's able to speak, but he can't hear at all. And even though we typically hold Dim Lo Hishmi Alaz No Yotz, if you didn't hear it or your ears, what was happening, you would fulfill your obligation. As we learned earlier in Siman Samach Beis and Hilchos Kriyat Shema, if you didn't hear it, you could still fulfill your obligation. B'di'evid of Shema, but l'chachila, preferably you're supposed to hear yourself when you say Shema, and the berachos of Shema. Siman Kuf Pehei also over there. Hachalin and Megillah. Mishum Persum Manisich Mir Ba Yoser Der Shmiel Aznahu Likuv over here. When it comes to Megillah, which is publicizing the miracle, the rabbis were more stringent and said that you need to hear what you are saying, and if you didn't, then you wouldn't even fulfill your obligation at all. So that's why someone who cannot hear is not able to read the Megillah for other people, because only someone who's obligated himself could fulfill the obligation of others. Hinami, an additional answer, the cheresh garatfei, someone who can't hear is worse. She'ena yachol lahashmiya la'azno, he can't hear to his ear, can't hear it. So he's worse off, he can't hear it at all, as opposed to a fellow who's just saying Shema and isn't loud enough, who he could technically hear if he would say it louder. But this person who can't hear, he can never hear. Fine b'shari tshuva.
What about there's I don't know if there's ever what about no one someone someone who's using Braille?
Yeah, you can't hear Braille. What type of
Especially
question
in
is that?
Megillah. What?
You can't hear Braille. I don't understand the question.
They can no, they can hear, they can't see.
Oh, for blind. Blind is obligated.
Yeah.
What's the question? Blind's obligated.
So
But
he can lay in the Megillah for something else.
oh, to read the Megillah. Excellent question.
Yeah.
Seems like from the Braille. I don't think
Well,
so.
I don't know what I mean, I'm sure that there's blind people that know about Peb, but they can't do that, right?
Right. Yeah, you might the halacha might need to be that you need to lean from actual parchment from the clef of the Megillah itself. It's an excellent
That's
question.
an that's
Question
an
is
estimate for real.
why that's not addressed in the Shulchan Aruch over here. But it's an excellent question why it's not brought up over here. Yeah.
Hmm.
I'm not sure. I would assume it would be an issue. The question is why is it not
Hmm.
listed in the Shulchan Aruch over here? And
Hmm.
Gemara and all that.
Okay, Braille.
Yeah, it's an excellent question. Anyways, Klemer, he says over here, just Klemer, Demisha Yochel Hashmi Laznav in Kriyasa Basula, Afabishla Hashmi Kivichu Royal Hashmi, Avamisha in Yochel Hashma Kriyasa Basula. There it is. Someone who is just not loud, he has the ability to technically hear if he would go louder, or if his hearing would be better. But someone who can't hear at all, his reading of the Megillah is completely invalid because he can't hear even if he wanted to. All right, like Bila. Kol Royal Bila in Bila Ma'akeves, but Kol She'ina Royal Bila Ma'akeves. Something like that. Whatever. That's something else. Anyways, back in the continuation of this Mishna Berura, I'm b'shari tshuva. Look at the shari tshuva. The dafka imu cherish gomer sheina shemei klal, specifically talking about if he's completely deaf, he can't hear at all. Lafuka imu shemei kirshon dabrin lo b'kol ram, coming to exclude someone who could in fact hear when they would speak to him in a very loud voice. So there's a difference on how bad his hearing is. All of this is according to the Shulchan Aruch. Aval kama achronim Aval das kam achron, but many achronim hold that filu hu cherish gam, or even if he is completely deaf, yatsa hashomeh mimenu, someone who heard from him would fulfill his obligation, even if he's completely deaf. Mikol makom lechachilu kol yom lamod shelo yamidu lo hoitzi rabbi yichavasam. Nevertheless, preferably everyone agrees that he should not be appointed to fulfill the obligation of other people. But then you should know demisha kavdu aznav, someone who is ears are heavy. He can't hear so well. Oshu rachach min bima, or he's far from the bima, the place where they are reading from the Megillah. Ve'ino yachol lishmoa heitiv min hakarin. He can't hear clearly from the person reading the Megillah. Yizahar likro isla atzma Megillah kosher. He should see to it to read from a Megillah which is kosher. O al kapanim yoichaz chumash v'hatevos shechaser lo yomer tekev min chumash. Or you should at least hold the chumash, and the words that he misses, he should say immediately from the chumash. So first of all, we see that the Mishna Berura is haskening at the end of the day that even if he's deaf, you can fulfill your obligation. This is also the Bach also learns this way, right? This is Sharatzion quotes the Bach and others. So that's number one. Number two is that it's not preferable. It's not lechachila to do that, but nevertheless, it would still work. Okay, and then this is the idea. If you can't hear, then you should hear. You should make sure that you have a chumash by you or something that you could hear. Next Mishnah Berura and Vav. Afalgav de kotan nami kotan. You can't hear from a kotan. Young kid. Afalgav de kotan nami chayv okapanim midirbanan. Even though that a minor is rabbinically obligated, kidlel sifalf, as we learned yesterday. Afilu hachi in the previous sif rather. Afilu hachi as we learned last week. Afilu hachi in a yachal lohitis agadol. Even so, a minor cannot read the Megillah for someone older. Lagabe kotan havi trader abanan, because by a katan, when it comes to a minor, there's two rabbinics that are going for him, two derabbanans. Right to the etzem kriyas Megillah havi rak min divrei seifim. The essence, the actuality, the actual obligation for everyone for the reading of the Megillah is rabbinic. And the obligation of a minor is also rabbinic, just like regarding all mitzvahs. So therefore, you have two derabbanans going for the katan, and therefore that would make his obligation lower. Conversely, by an adult, he has one derabanan. There's one thing going for the adult that his obligation of Megillah is rabbinic. Velocity trade derabanan umafik chad derabanan. So two derabanans can come along and fulfill the obligation of one derabanan. The two rabbinic ways in which a minor is obligated, aka that the whole obligation is rabbinic to begin with, and that his obligation is rabbinic because of chinuch, being educated. So therefore, his obligation is lower than a regular adult who only has one rabbinic factor going for him. V'hini la'elsim in tafresh ayin hesav gimel. It's brought in Hilchos Hanukkah. Evi u'machaber. Yesh mi shemachsher b'kotn shegilu chinuch shech l'hoitzi achirim b'al b'kasam. Some say it's kosher, it's allowed, a katan who reached the age of education, a minor, even though he's not bar mitzvah, to read the Megillah to light the menorah for other people, and other people can fulfill his obligation through his lighting. The same would apply when it comes to reading the Megillah. So the Ikari Dinim writes, quoting the Samadachai, in a pressing situation, if there's no other people around that are older, that are experts in the Megillah, so then this minor is in fact able to read the Megillah for them and fulfill their obligation. So the Mishna Berura has a very lenient ruling over here that in a pressing situation, a minor would work. So it comes out that the Mishna Berura has massive leniencies over here, because if we just go back to what the Shulchan Aruch says on the first page over here, he said that someone deaf, katan, or mentally challenged can't read the Megillah. The Mishna Berura is taking 2 out of 3 of those and allowing it. He's saying pressing situation, a katan and a cherish, someone who's deaf and a minor could in fact read the Megillah, and other people could in fact fulfill their obligation. Tremendous leniencies coming from the Mishna Berura over here. Tremendous leniencies. Okay, so that is going to be Vav. It's going to be letter Vav. Okay, let's continue with the next Mishnah Berurah. Next one writes, Yesh Oimrim. Shulchan Aruch then quotes his second opinion. It seems like according to the first opinion, women are in fact allowed to read the Megillah for men. So now we're going to learn the second opinion, and this is going to be the focus that we're going to focus on for the remaining 20 minutes, and I have a tremendous amount of to share, so I hope that we could get it all done. Yesharim, there are those that say that women are not able to fulfill the obligation of men. Yesharim shanashim inam otzias hasanashim. That women cannot fulfill the obligation of men, that they cannot read the Megillah for a man. Why? So we're going to be learning about this. It's 3 basic reasons. Yesharim, some say meisha kar latma, for if a woman's going to be reading the Megillah for herself, berachos l'shma Megillah. She makes the bracha l'shma mikra Megillah. Sheina chayavas b'kriya, because she's not obligated to read the Megillah. Reb Sham, what do they do? What do they do when you read the Megillah for the women? Who says the bracha? You or them? And what do they say? What's the bracha?
It depends. It depends. I think, if there's another man there, let's say there are men there, then I'll say the bracha,
If there's
or
no
the
other
man
men
will
there,
say
what
the
happens?
bracha. But if it's just women, I think Rabbi Brown said that the women should say the bracha,
What bracha?
the Shema Megillah.
L'shma Megillah? Okay, great. We're going to be learning about that right now.
The
L'shma Megillah
Shema Megillah.
or L'shma Mikra Megillah. We're going to see there's going to be two
Yeah,
different.
I don't remember, but I remember it's Lishma. Yeah, okay.
Okay, we're going to see 2 different nizchos. After learning this, you're going to remember and you're going to think twice about it. Look at the Mishnah Berurah over here in Zion. This is not similar to lighting the menorah, in which case, technically speaking, a woman could do it. Her husband's blind, not able to do it, whatever it is, she could do it. Megillah is different, because Megillah is comparable to laning. By laning, a woman would be invalid because of kavod hatzibur. It's not honor for the congregation. And therefore, a woman cannot even read the Megillah for one individual because of low plug. We didn't differentiate. When we said that something is a problem, it's a problem even if that reason doesn't apply, as we learned in the Magen Avram yesterday, and we saw this yesterday. Lishmoya kilakaime. Reason number two why a woman cannot read the Megillah for a man is that it is possible that a woman would not be obligated to read the Megillah, only to listen. And therefore is considered as if she is not obligated in comparison to a male. But a woman could in fact fulfill the obligation of her friend. So comes along the Sharat Sion. This is a big Sharat Sion over here. Aval l'noshim rabois ein isha moitzion. A woman cannot read the Megillah for many other women. The zila b'hu milsa, because it's zila b'hu milsa, which also basically means it's not respect for the tzibor. It's not an honor for the congregation. Seems like it's a little bit lower than that. It's more of a disgrace. Zila b'hu milsa. It's not good. Who does he quote on this? The Korban Asano quoting Tosfos in Sukkah. Here's the PDF of Sukkah. It says over there in Sukkah, in the Gemara, Tanur Abanam be'emes amnu, ben mevarach la'aviv ve'evid mevarach l'rabbo ve'isha mevareches l'bayla. In truth, the halacha is, technically speaking, if a son made a bracha and the father fulfilled his obligation through that bracha, or a slave made a bracha and his master fulfilled his obligation through the slave's bracha, or if a woman made a bracha, a wife made a bracha, and her husband fulfilled his obligation from that bracha, technically works. Aval amru chachamim, but the rabbis teach us tavo meira la'odam she'ish te'ubanim avarchelo. A curse should befall the individual who his wife or his children make brachas for him, and he fulfills his obligation through those brachas. Why? Rashi on the side over here says, Shaloi Lamad, he didn't learn how to say the bracha or perform the mitzvah on it by his own, by himself. He should have done that. Shaloi Lamad, V'im Lamad, Tavaloi Me'ira. Shemavazes koine laslo shulchim ke'ilu. And if he did learn how to say the brachas and still appoint such people that to be his messenger on his behalf, a curse should befall him, because he is disgracing his creator to have messengers like this. In other words, he should be doing it himself. This Rashi says, it's because he didn't learn how to do it himself. That's the problem. Tosfos then comes along and says, it's inami mishum derabim zilabu milsdar Megillah denoshim chayavos ba perish v'agdein noshim motzis derabim dichavos Megillah. Same idea at the end of this Tosfos, that what? It's not respect for the congregation if a woman will read the Megillah. It's disrespectful. That's the Bahag who said that a woman could not read the Megillah for a lot of men, for men. Comes along the end of the Oz V'Hadar Mishna Berura and says something incredibly relevant to this topic at hand. It says like this. In Mem Vav, let's go in order. Lishmoya. She says the bracha, if a woman would say the bracha, she would say Lishmoya Megillah, which really is in our simon. There's another simon that deals with the brachas, but we're still learning about it now. She doesn't say Al Mikra Megillah, which is a typical bracha. She says Lishmoya Megillah, because she's only obligated to listen, not to read. O Shetishma Kriyas Acherim O Kriyas Atzma. Aval be'emes akriya eina mechal mitzvasa. She's either obligated to hear the reading of the Megillah from someone else or read it herself. But the actual reading, she's not obligated to do. Then they point out over here that when she hears the Megillah being read from someone else, so then she's fulfilling her mitzvah without coming on to the halachic concept of Shemei Ka'ona, that listening is like answering. Because she doesn't need to read the Megillah. You don't need to come on to that her listening to the Megillah is like her reading it. Because she just needs to hear it. But a man needs to come on to the halachic principle of Shemei Ka'ona when we listen to the Megillah, because we have an obligation in Kriya of reading it. But look at this fascinating idea over here. Megillah is different. So Megillah is similar to laning, which a woman can't read from the Torah because it's not honored to the congregation. It's not covered at Tzibor. That's what it says in Siman Reish Pei Beis. Then it says, could be, the Mishna Berura says also possible that a woman isn't obligated to read it, like we just said, just to listen. And therefore, it's considered as if she's not obligated, like we saw. In other words, men are more obligated because they're obligated to read it. Women are only to listen. Let me ask a question. What's a halachic practical difference between if you go according to the reason of it's not an honor to the congregation, or if you go according to the reason that it is that she's not as obligated because she's not obligated to read the Megillah? What's the difference? So they quote over here the Rosh Yosef, who says that according to this reason, even if she heard the laning from a man, she wouldn't be yotze. If a man heard the lane, excuse me, if according to this reason, if a man heard a woman reading from the Megillah, he wouldn't fulfill his obligation even post facto. Wouldn't be good even b'diavad. That's according to the reasoning that men are obligated to read the Megillah, women are only obligated to listen to the Megillah. However, according to the reasoning of it's disrespectful, it's not an honor for the congregation, for the tzibor, so it seems like post facto, if a man would hear a woman read from the Megillah, it would in fact be good, and he would fulfill his obligations. That's a difference between those two reasons. If you want to see the Rosh Yosef inside, made a PDF file on that. It's a pretty long Rosh Yosef, but the one line is actually pretty small, and they speak it out a lot more in the Oz V'Hadar Mishna Berura. The one liner is actually in parentheses. Miyu Yishleimar, a terrible print. I'm sorry for that. Miyu Yishleimar mipnei kavod hatzibur ein karin l'nashim v'yod v'yevid moitzios latamzeh. That's where he says it. He says that because of the disrespectful for the congregation, they shouldn't read. However, for men. However, if they did, post facto, it would work. It should be pointed out the third reason that we learned about yesterday in the Kaf HaChaim why she can't potentially read is because it's Kol Isha. You're not allowed to listen to a woman sing. This would be similar. Finishing the Mishna Berura and Ches, look at the Magen Avram, who cites to say, I'm a Magen Avram, she shouldn't read the Megillah at all. Rather, she should hear it from men, even if she's by herself. The calls that this is this is talking about if she has who to listen to it from. Avalim ema mi sheyikra lefaneha tikrahi laatma b'gol kashera. Varechas ashir kasham is supposed to be sivana lishmoya mikra Megillah. This is only talking about if she has someone who she could hear the Megillah reading from. However, if she doesn't, and there's no one who could read the Megillah for her, so then she should read it herself from a kosher Megillah, and she should make the bracha. Asher kedichan mizatav tzivanu. What's the next words?
Shema Mikra Megillah.
Oh, there's your mikra. So the Mishna Berura over here is quoting from the Chai Adam. He's adding the mikra Megillah. Oh, Mr. Ramah, I bet you most people who are learning this for the first time would never pick this up. The Ramah says Lishmaya Megillah. Okay, we're gonna come back to that. Akoponim. When I say come back to that, I mean within the next 10 minutes. But the idea here is nevertheless that you see that she could in fact read it for herself, which is different than what we learned in the Magen Avram. Look at what the Mishna Berura over here says. The Mishna Berura, the Chafetz Chaim down here in the Sharat Tziyun is going to support this Chai Adam more. The Hadin Imo, it makes sense. The halachas like him. According to the first opinion, then in the Shulchan Aruch, then women are fully obligated. Even if we're going to hold that they cannot read the Megillah for men, nevertheless, she's obligated. And even if we're going to hold like the second opinion that women aren't obligated, she could still read the Megillah for herself. But she should make the bracha of the Shmoya Megillah. The Magen Avram quotes the Medrash and Elam Ros, the Zohar Chadash, that says that she shouldn't read the Megillah for herself. Says the Chayadim, no, we don't find such a language over there. The language is brought in the Vilna Gaon quoting the Zohar Chadash, and it's not clear that she can't read it herself. Especially if she doesn't have anyone else who could read it for her, certainly she should read it herself. That's how the Sharat Sion defends himself against what the Magen Avram said, a major achron. That's what the agenda was over there, down there in the Sharat Sion. That's what he was coming to do. He was trying to explain his reasoning for the ruling that he ruled like the Chai Adam, which seemingly was against the Magen Avram, to which he's defending based on Vilna Gaon and others. Okay, so that is the Mishna Berura. That's the Oz V'Hadar Mishna Berura. There's an incredible amount that we need to do right now, with the remaining time that we have. Let's just see the Dershu's first. because I made like 10 PDFs on all of this. That's why I say remaining time. I'm just going to go through the dirshu's very quickly. Regarding the brachos, oh no, let's come back to the brachos. Let's do this one first. Regarding the text of the bracha. All right. Regarding the text of the bracha. By the way, so actually, before we even get into this, is it so clear from how the Mishna Berura rules that at the end of the day, if a woman could read the Megillah for a man, is it so clear? Mishna Berura doesn't seem to address the issue.
Seems to be only if it's a pressing situation, we said.
You didn't say that. It's incorrect. Actually,
No?
said that she could read the Megillah for herself.
Oh, but for him,
He didn't say. He just provided reasons as to this opinion, as to why she couldn't read from the Megillah. So, so the Kaf HaChaim that we learned yesterday said in a pressing situation she could do it, but even so, if the man could hear another laning after, then he should again without brachos. That was the ruling of the Kaf HaChaim that we learned yesterday. Over here, he quotes the Who's Who. He says the Ramah says that the text is that if she would, right, the Ramah said that if she would hear the reading, she would say Lishmaya Mikra Megillah. Right? Ramah said if a woman's going to read the Megillah for herself, she says Lishmaya Mikra Megillah. So they say this is what the Shara Tzion says, also in Sifkat and Tezayin, as well as the Mishna Berura in Siman Tafrei Sadi Beis Sifkat and Yud Aleph, which is the halachas of the brachos for the Megillah. Rosh Shlomo Zalman Auerbach also holds this way in the Natag Gabriel Parak Lamed Dalet Halar Gimel. However, Rav Hagoyin Rav Yosef Shem Eliyashiv quoted in the Igros Apurim Parak Gimel Ha'ara Mem Beis as well as the Asher Yishchei Gimel Parak Mem Gimel Oslamed Beis say that she should say the bracha of Lishmaya Mikra Megillah. Also, Rav Nisan Karelit says this as well in his Yimei HaPurim Amakofei in the Igros Apurim over there in footnote Mem Beis that it's better that she should make the bracha on the text Lishmaya Mikra Megillah in order to fulfill the opinions that hold that women are obligated in Megillah. Also, the Minchas Pitim says this as well. The Nusach L'Shmaya Megillah doesn't have a good explanation to it, and you have a machlokes over there, a big argument. What about saying the brachos of the Megillah? Who says the brachos of the Megillah? Okay. That's Hagon of Yosef Shel Yachov in the Sefer Balayla Hu on page 8 that a woman is able to make the bracha and sheisha yachol lavarach ulahoitzi ashar hanashim Megillah alichachila sheim bazeb zila muslikim shein akardis Megillah. Let's say, for example, you have a man. He already heard the reading in shul. He read it or he heard it. Now he's reading the Megillah for other women. So according to Rav Elyashiv, she could make the bracha over there for the other women, even lechachila. That's not considered. It's not respect for the tzibur, because she's not reading from the Megillah itself. She's just saying brachas. And by the way, the question over here, of course, would be in arvus, because we say that if someone fulfilled their obligation, could they fulfill the obligation of someone else? It wasn't so clear that that applied to women. So therefore, the person who already heard the Megillah, one of the women over there would make the bracha. The question is now, who's going to make it? So according to this idea, according to Rav Elyashiv over here, she can make it and everyone else fulfills their obligation. So this is a Sefer B'lai Lahu. There are those that say, all right, so this is a Sefer B'lai Lahu. We're just going to go through the Dirshu now. We're not going to have time to that I open up shop over here and everything that they quote to dissect this and to see more in depth of what they actually say. Yeah, I tried getting too much done in a small amount of time. It's physically impossible. However, the Meidach Mashal Shuvas Minchas Yitzchak Chele Gimel Simin and Dalet Osam and Ches. The Minchas Yitzchak says, "Shagam es abrachos tevara kol echad la'atzmo." Even the brachos, everyone should make themselves. Everyone should make the brachos themselves. So he argues. He says that no, each woman over there should say the brachos on her own. Mishum dezilabu milsa should toitzi achas eskulim, because it would still be considered, wouldn't be respectful if one person would make the bracha and everyone would fulfill their obligation to that. V'chein das going to read some krelitz in the Sefer. Rav Nisim Krelitz also holds this way in the Sefer Yad Purim Perik Yud Ches Sivkot and Yud Alf. Also the Eagles Purim Perik Gimel. It's incorrect. It says Har Mem Alf. That's wrong. It's actually footnote Kuf Yud Beis. So they were only off by 71 footnotes over there. 60, yeah, 70. I mean, Mem Aleph to Kuf Yud Beis. How on earth are you that off? I don't understand. Yes, over 70 footnotes they're off. But anyways, they say that what? And going to Chaim Kanievsky, the Dasa going to Moshe Feinstein, Shekishish Harbe Noshim, Amna Mitzad Hadin, Adav Shachas, Shachas Tavarch Vitoitis Kulam Mishum Ravam Hadras Melech, Avalamina, who Shekol Echad Mevarach Ba'atzma. From the letter of the law, it would be better for one person to fulfill the obligation of all of them. However, because of Rovam Hadishmel, the majority of the nation gives plunder after the king, the more the better who are involved with one mitzvah. However, the custom is that everyone says the bracha on their own. Seems like most opinions, the way that they are quoting it over here, say that everyone should say the bracha on their own, which is fascinating. Sorry, we didn't have time to finish that whole footnote. 2 points over here, which are very important. Let's review what we already learned in Sif Aleph. Piskei Chuvas over here on the bottom of footnote 8 said that a woman should not read the Megillah herself. She should listen to it from men. So Magen Avram, quoting the Medrash and Elam, what you just saw, even in a pressing situation when there is no male around. So a woman shouldn't read the Megillah for other women because it's disrespectful, like we saw. However, Rosh Shlomo Zalman Auerbach argues and questions this ruling of the Shara Tziyun, quoting the Korban Nesanel that we just saw, based on the Taisus and Sukkah, because it's explicit in the Shulchan Aruch that women can make their own zimun, and also kiddush, that one woman can fulfill the obligation for other women, say kiddush for other women. So therefore, Rosh Shlomo Zalman Auerbach says that no, a woman could in fact fulfill the obligation of other women. I just want to pull that up on the screen. It's going to be the Aruch Hashulchan Perek Yud Tes. Sorry about that. Perek Yud Tes. Where was that? Perek Yud Tes. Footnote what? Footnote Daled. I don't see it in footnote Daled here. Oh, over here. It's in the Davar Halacha Daled. Over here is where he quotes it. You can see it on the screen. Near Dahadin, the Shaper Moitzia Nashem Rabba Tzidei Chavasa. Shlomo Zalman Auerbach argues on this whole halacha. He says that women could read Megillah for other women. That's the specific point that he is arguing on. One more point in the Piskei Chuvas. He says that the Mishna Berura quotes that says that the text that they would say is L'shmoya Mikra Megillah. And that's what the other Svarim bring as well. The Shmoya Mikra Megillah. Some of them write the Shmoya Mikra Megillah, and he says that's more correct. The Shmoya Mikra Megillah. So you have a discussion there, and then lastly, he says a leniency. You don't need to be so stringent if women aren't standing during the bracha of the Megillah, even though l'chachila certainly it's preferable for them to stand. Nevertheless, if they didn't, there's more what to rely on than for men. Okay, so that's basically the story. So just to clarify, it seems like at the end of the day, I personally like the ruling of the Kaf HaChaim. I really like that ruling a lot, which is that if there's no other option whatsoever, and for example, let's say the husband's blind, whatever, can't read the Megillah, or he doesn't know how at all, and a woman knows how, so then the Megillah could in fact be read from a woman, and a male could fulfill his obligation. However, even so, if he could hear the Megillah again from someone else after, who has an equal obligation to him, then he should. I think that ruling makes a lot of sense. It's interesting the Mishna Berura didn't specifically rule and Paskin on this case. And tomorrow we're going to finish going through that footnote and looking at all the svarim regarding the bracha of if, which is very relevant for women who hear second laning because they have children in the house. If someone already fulfilled his obligation in shul about Koreh, whether by hearing the Megillah or reading it over there, so now who's going to say the bracha over there in their house? We saw as a machlokas. We have to learn about that a little bit more. So Mitzvah Hashem, that's what we're going to learn tomorrow, and also tomorrow, next session that we learn, we're going to discuss microphones, leaning it through a microphone or a live feed on Zoom. Megillah, could you fulfill your obligation? So we're going to try to discuss that and shed some light on that major, complex halachic issue. Any questions, comments?
Wait, so I actually, no question.
All right.
No.
It's Hashem tomorrow. We'll continue.
Shkach.
All right, everyone, have a wonderful day. Baruch Hashem.
Have a nice day.